Well, I have just been exposed. Stick around to find out how. I want to start out with an analogy. Suppose you have a zoologist who is describing a zebra, and they point out, okay, well, hey, this zebra, he has some black stripes, and then there's some other stuff going on here where there's some white stripes. Now, suppose a non expert comes along and they say, this zoologist, he said that they have white stripes, but doesn't he see that it's clearly black? Look right here. Look at these black stripes. It's clearly black. You would wonder, okay, well, either this person is just gaslighting us, or maybe he came in on the second part of the conversation where he only heard the comment about, hey, there's some white stripes here, but they didn't hear the part where the guy tells them there's also some black stripes, and they also can't use their own eyes to see that there's both, right? It's one or the two. Either there's something going on with lying, or they can't see with their own eyes, and they came in at the middle of a conversation, missed some parts, and kind of made themselves look really foolish in an attempt to make the zoologist look foolish. They make themselves look foolish. That is what happens continually when you create content on YouTube and teach theology. You constantly get people who come around who will take one thing that you say and ignore everything else and think that it somehow contradicts everything else, in the way that somebody might think, well, the zoologist said that he has white stripes. That must contradict the fact that he has black stripes too. There's no contradiction. It's a both and, not an either or. But this is what happens when you create content and you have people who try to comment online. Now, I totally expect that from people who are not trained in theology, who are not perhaps creating content themselves. But it's a little odd whenever you get, somebody who is, I don't know, a liturgy geek, a contributor to the New Liturgical Movement and Rorati Celli, an associate member of the Society for Catholic Liturgy, and so on. It's a little bit more when you get content creators, people who contribute to various websites as article writers and so on. You would think that they would be a little bit more of a step up. No. But let me show you how these guys just tried to expose me. Let me share my screen to show you something here. We got this guy here, Matthew Hazell. I'm sorry, I misread. Matthew Hazell, Catholic liturgy geek, contributor to, again, New Liturgical Movement, Rorati Celli, member of the Liturgical Society. So you would think, okay, hey, this person is going to be a step up more than what you see just from randoms on Twitter or something like that, right? You would hope. But look at what he just posted. Someone who is currently engaged in doctoral study on the magisterium really ought to know that this is not what the church teaches. A bishop emeritus in no way ceases to be part of the Episcopal College. I found this entertaining. I see somebody's laughing in the comments about the beard in the thumbnail. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I'm trying to, I'm trying to be a big man with a big beard, Can't have that small beard. By the way, small beards matter, and it's the beard on the inside that counts. T-shirts coming soon. Okay. Well, all right. So this guy is saying, Michael, what in the world? You're engaged in doctoral studies of the magisterium and you don't know a retired bishop is part of the Episcopal College? Really? Seriously, dude? Yeah, I know that. Well, where? Literally had a show yesterday saying that. Share the screen. Right there. Who has authority? Do retired bishops and cardinals still have magisterial authority? I explicitly say retired bishops and cardinals are still members of the Episcopal College. I say they are part of the College of Bishops. Those are synonyms. College of Bishops equals Episcopal College. So if I said yesterday, retired bishops are still part of the College of Bishops, that equals I said they're part of the Episcopal College. They're synonyms, right? I never denied this. I never said that. This is a straw man. And this is equivalent to the guy who's standing by listening to the zoologist walks up and he's like, he said the zebra has white stripes. He clearly has black stripes. Yeah, it's both. It's both. So listen to watch what he is commenting on my post where I'm saying, and it's just a tweet. So you don't have, 20 hours to expand upon things and nuance every single point. You just have to hope and trust that people would not engage in this kind of behavior. But I said, he has zero magisterial authority, talking about a retired cardinal. All he could do is morally exhort based on how convincing his arguments may or may not be, just like the rest of us. The ability to bind consciences and teach authoritatively is tied to a particular church, which he no longer has. And I did a whole show yesterday, and it's not the first time I've done it, where I back that up with about 5 different magisterial documents, including the one that he cites to me. Canon 753, Apostolus Suos, Lumen Gentium, and many others. And so notice what's happening here. He fails to understand a very basic distinction. One can still be part of the Episcopal College while not exercising teaching authority in an authentic or authoritative way. How is that? Here's how. If you don't have a diocese, you don't have a flock entrusted to you, you're not exercising that magisterial authority. The only exception is, and I gave this yesterday in my video, the only exception is if that bishop who is retired bishop or retired cardinal participates in an ecumenical council, then they're doing so collectively, not individually. Or if they are functioning as the ordinary and universal magisterium with all of their brother bishops dispersed throughout the world, with and under St. Peter and his successor, they teach in unison with all their brother bishops on a matter of faith and morals, the ordinary and universal magisterium. And again, in that case, they're not acting as individuals, but as a collective body of the Episcopal College or the College of Bishops. I made that qualification. So it's a both and. To say that an individual bishop cannot bind consciences on an individual level if they are retired because they no longer have a particular flock is not antithetical to saying that a bishop who is retired is part of the Episcopal College. It's a both and. Yes, you're part of the Episcopal College as long as you are sacramentally ordained a bishop. So you're consecrated a bishop, you're part of it. The only other qualifier, by the way, is you have to be in communion with the Pope. So, for instance, Eastern Orthodox bishops, they have valid apostolic succession, but they're not part of the Episcopal College because they're not in union with the Pope. Those are the 2 qualifications. So to be part of an Episcopal College is a pretty lower standard. To teach authoritatively and bind consciences is a higher standard. And a retired bishop and a retired cardinal does not do that, with the exception of participating in an ecumenical council or ordinary and universal magisterium. They don't do so individually on YouTube or in a letter or on a blog or at a conference. They don't do that. Why? Because, again, I've shown multiple magisterial documents are explicitly clear that you can only exercise that kind of magisterial authority. What I mean by magisterial authority is the ability to bind consciences. You can only do so to the flock entrusted to you. So not even somebody else's flock. So if you have a flock entrusted to you, you have a diocese, You can bind the consciences of your faithful, but not some other bishop's faithful. And again, it's only limited to your faithful. Now, if you no longer have a diocese, no longer have a flock, you can't exercise that kind of authority in binding consciences as an individual bishop. It's a both and. And I've been so abundantly clear about this. And again, I recommend people just look at, I'll share my screen, just briefly review it again. Although, again, I go over it more extensively in multiple videos, including the one from yesterday, this particular one. Do retired bishops and cardinals still have magisterial authority? I give you receipts on all that. But just very quickly, sneak peek, you have Lumen Gentium 25, talking about individual bishops, each of them as a member of the Episcopal College. I literally said that yesterday. And legitimate successor of the apostles is obliged by Christ's institution and command to be solicitous for the whole church. And this solicitude, though it is not exercised by an act of jurisdiction. Did you catch that part? Watch what happens here. This guy wants to quote something to me that points out the Bishop Emeritus has the right to manifest his solicitude for all the churches. I literally read that to you yesterday in Lumen Gentium. But did you catch that extra qualifier? Yes, he has solicitude for the whole church, but not in any kind of binding way, not in a way to bind consciences, not as an act of jurisdiction. Did you see that qualification? They don't catch that. It's a both and. There's more nuance to this than they realize. An individual bishop can't bind consciences on the individual level if he is retired and no longer has a flock. He can be solicitous for the entire church and preach and teach, but it's not going to be in an authoritative way that binds consciences. It would be similar to how a layman can teach but not bind consciences. It's similar with a retired bishop or a retired cardinal, with, again, very, very few exceptions. The only exceptions here would be when they're acting collectively with the entire Episcopal body, and an ecumenical council are dispersed throughout the world in the ordinary and universal magisterium. Aside from that, their teaching, their exhortation is not jurisdictional. It is not binding on the conscience. Whereas an individual bishop who does have a diocese, he can bind the conscience of his flock, and the people have to submit with religious submission of intellect and will. So again, it's a both and, not an either or. And I'm just incredibly amazed that they continue to miss basic information like this. Let me give you another one. This is from Apostolos Suos. Certainly the individual bishops, as teachers of the faith, do not address the universal community of the faithful except through the action of the entire College of Bishops. Now, here they're talking about authoritatively addressing. Obviously, an individual bishop who's even retired or not retired and has a diocese can speak to the entire flock, but they can't bind the consciences of the entire flock unless, again, with the entire College of Bishops, Ecumenical Council, Ordinary, and Universal Magisterium. In fact, only the faithful entrusted to the pastoral care of a particular bishop are required to accept his judgment in the name of Christ in matters of faith and morals, and to adhere to it with religious assent of soul. See, they miss this kind of stuff. A bishop with a diocese can exercise magisterial authority over only his flock, not somebody else's flock, not the whole universal church. Only his faithful have to assent to it with religious submission of intellect and will. And this therefore means a bishop who doesn't have a flock doesn't have that kind of magisterial authority to bind consciences as an individual bishop. He does not have that authority. This is painfully clear in many sources. Another one for you, Canon 753. And by the way, this isn't exhaustive. There's more. It talks about bishops are authentic teachers. That means authoritative teachers. Think magisterial teachers. They are authentic teachers and instructors of the faith for the Christian faithful entrusted to their care. So authentic teaching, magisterial authority is going to be tied to having that diocese. if they're going to exercise it as an individual and be an authentic teacher as an individual bishop, you got to have a flock. If you don't have it, you can't exercise it individually. As a member of the Episcopal College, you can exercise it generally with all your other brother bishops. Both hand. Important but vital distinction that almost every single one of them misses. Again, this is not exhaustive. I'm just giving you a few examples. The part that he quotes to me is one of the very documents I quoted yesterday in this video. And he is going to be quoting from Apostolorum Successoris. And we're going to go down to 229 and take a look at it. He quotes this. The bishop emeritus continues to be a member of the Episcopal College. Yeah, I said that when I read Lumen Gentium 23 yesterday. Never denied that. Affirmed it multiple times. By virtue of sacramental consecration and hierarchical communion with the head and members of the college. I literally just said that yesterday. I also just said it now. As long as you're validly ordained and you're in communion with Pope, you're part of the College of Bishops. Therefore, he has the right to assist the Pope and to collaborate with him for the good of the whole church. Absolutely. I affirmed this multiple times. But when he does that and he's acting as an individual, he can't bind consciences when he does it, though. He can do it in the same way that I can do it right here on YouTube. And that is, I can tell you, hey, here's what the church teaches. Hey, stop sinning. Hey, stop slandering. Here's what the Bible teaches about slandering or lying. And I can just exhort people and I can teach them what Scripture says. That's what a retired bishop does as well. You can argue that it carries a little bit more moral authority because he's validly ordained, but it doesn't bind your conscience. It's not magisterial authority. You only listen insofar as what he is saying is true and is convincing. However, if a bishop who has a particular flock exercises magisterial authority, whether you're convinced of his argument or not, he can bind your conscience. That's what magisterial authority does. It's not based on the merit of the argument. It's based on the authority being used, which as individual retired bishops, they can't exercise that authority anymore because they don't have a flock. So yes, they can do this greater missionary work of preaching and teaching, but not in an authoritative way that can bind consciences. I was so abundantly clear about this. And again, let's see, he also highlights this part. The bishop has the right to manifest his solicitude for all the churches and in particular way for the missionary church. I affirmed that multiple times. So honest question, Matthew, are you just intentionally misleading people or did you just completely miss all of this information? I'm going to give you the judgment of charity. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you just missed all this stuff. So you're that guy who walks up to the zoologist who just explained to people, well, a zebra has white stripes and black stripes. And you're that guy who walks up and you only heard the second part and you're like, he said the zebra has black stripes, but I mean, he clearly has white stripes. You're that guy who can't actually see that he has both, and you didn't actually pay attention to the whole thing. You're that guy. So I want to encourage you, Matthew, step up, take a step up. And then I honestly have to ask a sincere question. As traditional Catholics, I thought we were supposed to be well-formed in the faith. I thought we were supposed to be top tier. Why is it that every single one of these guys, to the man, is incredibly ignorant when it comes to the magisterium? And they say things like this, and then they try to mock people who do know about the magisterium, and they end up making themselves look like fools in the process. Why is it that we are so poorly trained here? There's a massive gap in our catechesis on the magisterium, and that needs to be filled. And I understand, it's going to be a struggle for somebody who's a new convert or something, but a guy who's a contributor to NLM blog, Roraticelli, and Liturgy Society, come on, I expect more than this. Now, hey, I got to give him credit. At least he actually tried to go to a magisterial document and tried to interact in some kind of very basic way. He at least went to a magisterial document. That's a step up above pretty much all of the other guys. Because all the other guys, what they'll do is say, you have a small beard, and that's it. Bro has a small beard. That's the level of their interaction. At least he actually went to a magisterial document. He didn't understand it, but there it is. I encourage you guys, step it up. Actually interact with the material. It would be helpful. I would appreciate it. Try to not think in either or terms, because you guys act like Protestants when you do that. It's a both and, not an either or in many cases. Unless there's an absolute contradiction, look for an either or. In this case, there's no absolute contradiction. In this case, I've been abundantly clear. I also have to say this. It's a little frustrating as a content creator to, I don't know, do 3,500 videos. I've done 3,500 videos. Spend thousands of hours explaining the faith, going over magisterial documents just for randoms to just come along, hear not even 1% of the conversation, and think that they somehow are able to dunk on what I'm saying. It just doesn't work that way. Odds are, if you think that there's an area where you're dunking on me, odds are you're not taking something else into account. And it would be better to adopt a position of humility by saying, hey, Michael, can you explain your statement here when you say a retired bishop doesn't exercise magisterial authority individually like this? Can you explain to me how that works in light of this other document that talks about how they're part of the Episcopal College? And I would say, yeah, absolutely. That's a fair question. You could be part of the Episcopal College without exercising magisterial authority on the individual level, because exercising magisterial authority on the individual level is going to be tied to a diocese. A retired cardinal or a retired bishop doesn't have that. However, they do have solicitude for the entire church as members of the Episcopal body, but when they do so, they're not doing so authoritatively. The only kind of authoritative action that they could engage in is if they're actually collectively gathered with the rest of their bishops, either in an ecumenical council or if they are functioning in the ordinary and universal magisterium. I could mention one more rare exception, which doesn't appear to happen, but could potentially happen. And that is, you could have a retired bishop participate in an Episcopal conference. Most of the time, the actions of an Episcopal conference is not magisterial. In some rare cases, you could have an Episcopal college or a plenary council or a provincial council, which, again, a retired bishop could participate in. And in rare circumstances, they could issue a document. And depending on which instance we're talking about, it could be magisterial, but it's always going to require the approbation of Rome, unless one exception there. If the Episcopal College teaches and every single bishop there unanimously teaches something, they don't actually need approbation from the Holy See for it to be binding. That's the one other exception. So aside from that, those are the only instances that I can really think of where they would exercise authority. And notice in each one of those instances, it's not as an individual. It's always as a collective with the rest of their brother bishops. And one more point. The individual bishops, whether they do or don't have a diocese, whether they do or don't exercise authority that is to bind one's conscience, either way, the magisterium is clear that their teachings have to be regulated by the teachings of Rome. So the individual bishop can't teach something contrary to Rome. So if a retired bishop or a retired cardinal is telling you the Pope is teaching heresy, he has no authority to do that. First of all, he doesn't have authority to bind your conscience. And number two, he can't even morally exhort you to somehow listen to the proposition that he's issuing, because, again, it goes contrary to what the Holy See is saying, and everything has to be regulated by Rome according to the magisterium itself. That's Lumen Gentium, in addition to other magisterial documents. So keep that in mind as well. I go over this in more detail in the show yesterday. It's really unfortunate people don't actually watch the stuff, but then they want to jump in and try to dunk on me and end up dunking on themselves. It's a really weird thing. It's kind of like they run up to the basketball goal to go and dunk, but they end up, the ball ends up hitting the rim and they bounce back off and they fall down on their face, and then they run to the other end of the court to their own goal and they dunk on their own goal. That's what these guys do every single time. Step it up, y'all. Come on. It's wild. Anyways, I'm really tempted to get one of those fake beards. I want to know what y'all think. I'm really tempted to get one of those fake beards and just have it like, hanging on my ears or whatever with the strings, and have it come down to like here, one of those really thick Jimmy Akin beards. I'm thinking about getting a brown one, but I was also maybe considering blonde, but y'all let me know which one you prefer. But I'm really thinking about getting a fake beard and doing a whole show with just the beard on and not smiling the entire time. That'll be really hard to do, but I think I can maybe do it. And do it live, by the way, not pre-recorded. And do the whole show with the long beard and keep a straight face. Do you think I can do it? That's number one. That's the first question I want you to answer. Do you think I can do it? Number two, should it be brown or blonde? And then number three, do you think I could keep a straight face the whole time? So should I do it? What color should it be? And can I keep a straight face? I want to hear from y'all. Y'all let me know. Everybody, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Got a few other shows coming up here in just a little bit, in addition to a whole bunch of other shorts. So today's going to be a busy day. Looking forward to it. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Everybody hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And again, my advice to you, Matthew Hazell, bro, step it up. Step it up. Come on. All of you Catholics out there who say you're traditional Catholics, step it up. We got to do better than this. I thought we were better than the liberals. This is the kind of stuff liberals do. This is the kind of stuff modernists do. We're supposed to be top tier Catholics as traditional Catholics. Let's step it up with our understanding of the faith. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. God bless.
Hey friends, do you want others to discover why the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus established? And do you want to help people make sense of all the confusion in the Catholic Church today? Help contribute to this mission by supporting Reason and Theology at patreon.com/Reason and Theology. By doing so, you'll also get access to exclusive content for patrons only. Also, if you want to deepen your faith, there are free ebooks and even courses that you can sign up for by visiting reason.podia.com.